It took me about 6 hours to finish this book. It's more like a consolidation of all the self-help books we are taught by the internet to read. Think of them all, and you'll find them in this 300 pages book. It is very easy to read. The font, the chronology, the analogy, everything is top tier. So today we are reviewing The Diary of a CEO by Steven Bartlett, the 33 laws of business and life and business. So I am going to share with you some of the laws that are currently relate with me so much. I'm not going to review all the laws. I'm only going to review what resonates with me a lot. Before I go into that, at least 69.7% of you are watching videos on this channel but are not subscribed. If any video has changed your life or impacted you positively, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Right, and good news is next week, this time, the first episode of Employment Wednesdays season 2 will be uploaded, and you'll be having a good time. The book reviews will still be coming, but not as frequent as they were coming in place of Employment Wednesdays. So we are going to go into the first law. The first thing that I'm going to answer is, why did I actually purchase the book, right? So I purchased the book because I've been listening to The Diary of a CEO, the podcast. So I've been catching up on the podcast, and then when I went to get like my monthly books, I saw it and I'm like, oh, Steven Bartlett has a book. I didn't even know that he had a book. I'm like, let me get it. To my surprise, it was one of the most beautiful books I've read, and it's actually one of the books that I've taken a very short time to read because of how easy it is to understand, is easy to consume basically, and his examples, his chronology, analogy, it sticks into your mind. So we're going to go into this book is based on 4 pillars. So these are the 4 pillars that determine your success in life and in business, right? So the first pillar is thyself, which means master yourself in order for you to master the world. You need to be self-aware. So you cannot master anybody else. You cannot master anything else or anyone else. You need to start with knowing who you are, master yourself, right? And then you would be able to actually externally master other people. And then the story. It's important that you know your story and you know how to tell it so that you can influence other people to buy into your story or to be inspired by your story. Many of us have really life-changing stories, but we don't know how to tell the stories. So this pillar says the story. It teaches you how to articulate yourself, how to show up, and how to treat your personal brand, things that you can do to actually improve yourself personal brand. And then the third pillar is the philosophy, right? So these are a set of beliefs, values, and principles that guide your behavior and fundamentals that underpin your actions. So we are all actually, most of the time, the choices we make, where we end up, the decisions we make are influenced by our values, the core values. So you need to know your philosophies, your core values, your set of beliefs, because those are the things that influence the choices that you make and how you show up. And the team, these are the people you work with, the culture. And when you have a dream team, you have a 1 + 1 = 3. I know it doesn't make sense, but 1 + 1 = 3, and that means great things, right? So those are the 4 main pillars, right? So the first pillar focuses on thyself. So this pillar constitutes of certain laws that actually talk about how you can focus on yourself and how you can improve yourself in order to be successful in either in life or in your business, relationships, and overall, holistically, right? Like I said, I'm not going to review all the laws. The first law I'm reviewing is law number 1, which says fill your buckets in the right order. So you've got 5 buckets, which is what you know, that means your knowledge, what you do, which is your skills, who you know, which is your network, and what you have, which are your resources, and the world, and what the world thinks of you, that is the reputation that you've built for yourself over the years, right? So you cannot, one thing you need to always know, you cannot pour from empty buckets. You need to focus on filling up your buckets. That way you'll be able to pour quality into other buckets. So you can't just go into the world and want to pour things into people when your buckets are actually running on reserve or your buckets are low. So it's important that you master filling up these buckets. So at first glance, I'm like, oh, well, it's easy filling up these buckets. Then I remember the key word in the sentence. It says in the law, the key word in the law, it says fill your buckets in the right order. So you can have the 5 buckets, but if you're filling them in the incorrect order, it impacts your whole outcome or the result of your success, right? So it's imperative that the buckets are filled out in the correct order. And then he talks about how our biggest investment is getting knowledge. So do not skip the first two buckets, knowledge and skill. They lay the foundation and keep your longevity. And also it's important that they're in the correct order. So the first two are the most important, which is your knowledge and your skill, right? So when you get knowledge, it means you're able to get skill. Then it helps you do something, utilize your skill. When you utilize your skill, then you're able to improve your network, because as you work and all of that, you're able to meet different people. And then when your network improves, your resources increase. And when your resources increase, now people think of you highly and think of you a certain way. So that's how they should be. But you start off with these main two important ones, which is knowledge and skill. These are non-negotiable, because these can never be taken away from you. Reputation can go away, network can go away, resources can go away, but your knowledge and skill can never be taken away from you. So it's important that you have your knowledge, because when knowledge is applied, it is power. No unpredictable event can take away your education or your knowledge or your skill, right? So don't skip phases and jump to the other ones. So make sure that your buckets are full. And then law number 2, to master it, you must create an obligation to teach it. I love this one as well, because I believe that when I know something, for me, it means I'm doing meaningful work. When I know something, when I understand something, I'm able to share it with other people. And I know that I understand something and I know something when I'm able to share it with another person, or when I'm able to actually teach it in the most simplest form. So if I can't share concept with a certain person, I know there's still more work that I need to do on the concept, right? Rule number 9, always prioritize your first foundation. And your first foundation is your health. You cannot operate if you're not well. I don't care who says what. I don't care how much money you have. No amount of money, no amount of motivation, no amount of quick fixes or diets can actually give you good health, quality health. So you must always prioritize your health above all. So prevention of any illnesses or any issues with your health is better than trying to cure them in the future. So this means that in everything you do, make sure that your body and your mind are well taken care of. How do you take care of your mind? You feed your mind with good wisdom, good knowledge. And how do you take care of your body? You move it a lot. You also rest it. When you rest your body, when you move your body, it is supposed to be rested. And when you rest your body more, you actually relax yourself and you're able to make better choices. You're able to handle stress better. You're able to show up better. And when you are well rested, you're able to exercise better. You are able to show up as your better version of yourself, and you're able to provide quality deliverance of service, or whatever service that you're providing. Like for instance, when I haven't been sleeping the entire week because maybe of work or any other thing, I know that I don't show up so well and I become so confused. I'm not in a good right mental state. But when you're well rested, your mental state is free, your mental state is very relaxed, and you're able to be so creative, and you're able to perform exceedingly than you can imagine, right? And then law number 14, friction can create value. So in this law, he says sometimes in order for us to get the traffic that we need to increase sales, we need to do the opposite of what is expected. So sometimes routine, and this is a psychological phenomenon. I love how when you read the book, he actually refers to certain aspects that he's interviewed over time and over the years, and he actually also refers to some scientific phenomena that actually influence how we react to certain things, right? So because our brains are wired a certain way, so when something is done over and over again, we're no longer able to spark a reaction because it's routine. I know I'm supposed to wake up at 4 a.m. so my body's not good. My body clock automatically wakes up. The same way when we're selling a certain thing, people end up just buying because, oh well, it's whatever brand, or oh well, it's Yvonne, right? But when you change things, or when you go the opposite direction, it makes you gain traffic or traction, in that people are going to be like, oh no, but she's used to doing it a certain way. So it's another great strategy or marketing strategy to have people closely look at your brand or observe your brand, because when people become familiar or used to a certain thing, they sort of stop appreciating it. It just becomes routineless, no emotions or whatever. Like it just becomes routine, no emotions whatsoever. People just do it because it's for vibes, right? And then so again, it's important to a certain extent, right? So sometimes things need to go wrong for them to go right, but it's important your frame is more important than the picture you're trying to paint. So how you see that friction that is being caused by an opposite behavior or a different behavior is important compared to the picture that you're trying to paint. So you need to take advantage of any form of friction that happens or how people respond to that friction. It works to your favor. How you present your product matters the most and needs to be in the most factual and compelling lenses. So more than the product itself, like you can have the greatest idea, you can have the greatest product, but how you present it is much more important. You cannot, like, you could be the most skilled person ever, but if you can't tell your story or present whatever you're trying to sell, or present yourself, or introduce yourself, or tell your story, your ideas are likely to die with you. Many people die with their ideas. Many people's companies do not flourish, or maybe content or whatever the case may be, simply because they don't know how to present their story, simply because they don't know how to present their product, or simply because they don't know how to present their skill. You can have the skill but not be able to sell it or present it. So it's important that friction, because friction then causes you to actually be like, oopsie, what's going on? You know, it helps you reevaluate. It helps you to actually think your product matters most. It needs to be in the most factual and compelling manner. So whatever you do, regardless of how great your product is, you must have compelling strategies or compelling ways to present it or sell it to the people in order for them to buy into it, right? And then he teaches us to say, fight for the first 5 seconds in law number 18. If all you had was 5 seconds to interact with a person, interact with an audience, then it's important that those 5 seconds actually make them want to stay. So the first 5 seconds of viewing your product, if by virtue of just first glance of looking at your product or looking at whatever you're trying to sell, or watching a video that a person watching a video that you would have uploaded, in the first 5 seconds they must want to stay. So it's always important that those first 5 seconds, they actually are compelling, and those first 5 seconds you use them to your greatest advantage, as if you never have another opportunity to pitch further to a person, especially if you're going to pitch a business idea or if you're going to sell a product to a person. Because now we live in a digital world, or in a digital space. Most times, most products are marketed on social media, and apparently a person doesn't want to only figure out what's going on in the middle of the video. They want to figure out in that first 5 seconds, because usually also, again, the human focus span, apparently it's about 8 to 12 seconds. So if you can't get your point across in the first 12 seconds or draw the person in, it might be harder for them to actually understand you further or stay longer with you in that point or whatever product you would be trying to sell them. So also, this book is very great for people that are trying to change their marketing strategy or their selling point, you know. So make the first 5 seconds of whatever you're delivering the most compelling. So because all you ever have is 5 seconds. Get over the warm welcomes and get straight to the topic. Don't make it long and start introducing yourself and read your 15 minutes bio and all of that. Just get straight to the point. It keeps your audience alive and it keeps them excited and wanting to know more. And then law number 19, you must sweat the small stuff. Sweat the small stuff. So here you make the smallest changes and they will turn into bigger results. So that 1% change that you make every day of your life is actually the reason that you'll be able to build a multi-billion-dollar company in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. You showing up at the gym each day at a time, even though you're not seeing any movement on the scale, 3 years from now, you are going to thank yourself, even if you don't lose the weight, but you are going to thank yourself. Your health is going to be well improved. So it's not in the big steps and the big choices that we make to say, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lift 100 kgs in the moment. No, it's in the little by little. It's in the, I lifted 5 kgs this month, or this week, I'm moving on to 10 kgs. Whatever little progress you make, or that little step you take, it actually contributes to the greatest outcome in the near future. And then law number 20, a small miss now creates a big miss in future. So here's the thing, the small things that we don't care about now are the things that are going to affect us in the future. So when you handle everything that you do or market anything, or when you sell anything, handle it with care. The small things are the ones that matter. Sometimes you don't have control over how people are going to receive you or how people are going to receive your product. But the small things that you do behind the scenes matter the most. How you introduce yourself to people, how you create that product, the love and the passion you put into creating that product, how you deliver that product, the packaging of the product. Many times I've seen this actually. Many times I'm so excited about the packaging more than the product. I used to think about, I'm like, what's going on? But I think for me, it's the fact that there was attention to the little detail to say, okay, let this box of whatever be folded into this, or let this box of whatever be colored this way. So the little things are the ones that make you stand out. It's not the big things, it's just the little things. Things that we do today are very important, right? Because they are seeds into our future. So the small changes, the small choices we make today, they actually plant seeds into our future, and they will blossom. Whether you are planting bad seeds, good seeds, they will blossom in the future. And then law number 21, outfail the competition. So many of us, we shy away from failure because we are taught that failure is not good. At least failure is not labeled as a good thing. But it is important that you fail, because in your failing, you know how not to do things the next time. It's about 2 types of decisions, how we make decisions. So he says there's type 1 decision. This is where irreversible decisions, these are irreversible decisions. These must always be thought out through. There must be a team, there must be deliberation. You must think them through. These are type 1 decisions. But there are also type 2 decisions. These are reversible decisions. If it fails, you can always have an alternative. You can always go back and fix. So it's not a train smash if it doesn't work out, right? So it's important that you allow yourself to take type 2 decisions as quickly as possible, because you know for a fact that even if you fail, it does not have harmful consequences to your brand or harmful consequences to the company. But now he says how stats has proven that many people shy away from making the type 2 decisions, the quick decisions, the decisions that are high risk, but they are also not as harmful. They're irreversible, because we are always trying to protect status quo. We're always trying to hold on to what's going right, and we actually miss out. And then I love that there's an analogy he uses when you get the book, or if you get the book, he explains how 2 different the son and the father had an analogy of how to handle things. And then the father was very traditional. He always wanted to think everything through, and certain decisions would take longer. And then with the son didn't mind. He would always take quick decisions, and the son actually succeeded more and made more revenue, because some of those decisions we need to make quickly. They're like once in a lifetime opportunity, or they operate on a loop. You may find out that there's a loophole right now in the market, and somebody's asking you if we can do this. The moment you say, oh no, I need to think about it from a year now, and I need to consult certain people, then that law, if that loop closes up, that strategy or that decision that you needed to take may not work by the time you want to say yes. It may not have the same effect. So you must always know when to take type 2 decisions, and take more of those decisions, especially when a risk is involved, but you know that if there's any harm that can occur, you can always rectify the situation, okay? And I love how he talks about, we always talk about company culture. And I think this is a new thing that I learned. Every company says, oh, our company culture. But from reading this particular law, which is law 21, I learned that no company has one culture. There is the company generic culture, but a company has different cultures depending on the manager. So that is why you'll find that a company overall is a good company, right? They try by their all means to actually make sure that employees are happy. But because a manager is not such a great manager, or a manager creates a hostile or environment that is not conducive, or an unhealthy or toxic environment for employees, then there's that distinguished culture. So each company has its own generic culture, but then also departmental cultures depending on the manager. I was like, ooh, so you can be in the right company but with the wrong manager. So sometimes it's not the company you need to leave, it's a department that you need to change. I don't know who needs to hear that. Instead of packing and leaving, maybe consider speaking to HR to say, hey, where can you fit me? Because maybe the issue is not the company but the department that you're in. And then before I even go into law 22, I also want to remind you that failing more actually increases your chances of success, because then you've got an understanding that the moment you do this is not going to work, so I can never do this thing this way ever again, right? So always make sure that you allow yourself to fail if you need to, and always make sure that you lean in instead of always leaning out of the things you don't agree with, out of the things you don't understand. Lean in and try to say, okay, why am I failing? What can I learn from this? What is this moment teaching me? What is it preparing me for? So always exercise your ability to lean in more instead of leaning away, because most of the time we have this problem where if we don't agree with certain things, we want to lean out. We just want to tap out. We just want to not associate ourselves with a certain thing. But sometimes lean in different industries. Observe how people do things. Even if you don't agree, lean in to get their thought process, to get why they do things a certain way. In Law 22, you must be an A-plan thinker. So you must always act as though you do not have an alternative, because apparently psychologically having plan B impacts our outcome and our performance. So apparently by virtue of knowing that you can always fall back on something, that you always have another alternative, it sort of decreases your performance, because you know that if this doesn't work out, I can always lean on the other thing anyway. So always ensure that you act as though that plan A is the only plan that you have, right? And then he talks about how only having a plan A is possibly one of the greatest motivations you can ever get, right? And then I love using, actually, one of the examples I love using is Nompumelelo Lidwaba, who is CEO and founder of Wisdom and Wellness, right? One thing about her, I believe that she's a plan A girl. Plan A, no plan B. And when you think about it, like, she dropped out from university. She was an accounting student, but she dropped out to start off her entrepreneur journey and her starting up her businesses and etc., right? She's been that girl, right? But now she's also an influencer, but she's in her category of her own, guys. Nobody can compare to how her work ethic is insane, how she delivers, the type of things she does. She like literally did unlimited first 24, like that was insane. You know, she's a published author right now. Her book is dropping in October. It's probably going to be so good. You look at the growth of Wisdom and Wellness, insane. You look at the type of campaign she does, like she does SMAG type of stuff, Cotton On. The brands that she's associated with are big brands. So when you look at her, you think go big or go home, because she's got such an exceptional work ethic. And every time I think of it, I remember I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I was saying, you see, the thing about Mpumi, I believe she has no other plan. So what you see her delivering on social media, that's her real job. So it's her plan A. She's unlike, you know, there's a various influencers of her caliber, like, you know, similar type of stuff, who have 9-to-5 jobs. Some of them are attorneys, some of them are architects, some of them, they have degrees, they graduated, you know, some of them are still mixing 9-to-5 and the influencing and stuff. But with Mpumi, she depends on this to sustain her life. And also with other ones, you can say, okay, their husbands have like 9-to-5 and stuff, but Brendan is also an entrepreneur, he's a musician. So you can already see that with the type of jobs they have, they dependent on this to sustain their lives. So the input that goes into the work they deliver is insane, because they understand that a lot is at stake. They understand that their bond, their cars, their standard of living, everything is dependent on whatever they're delivering to the people. So they always make sure that they deliver to a maximum level. I don't think of this as a strategy, because when you look at it, you're thinking, oh, but Mpumi, when are you going to rest? You're always working, you're always putting your best. But when you think about it, it works, because it's like plan A or nothing. So if that doesn't work, if this plan A doesn't work, I'm screwed. And according to Steven Bartlett, this strategy actually works great. And according to various experts that he spoke to about this subject, it says nothing but plan A. You actually are likely to perform highly. You actually are likely to be more motivated to get the stuff done, because you know you have nothing to fall back on. And then Law number 23, don't be an ostrich. So basically in law number 23, he talks about how it's important not to be an ostrich. Don't be a person who avoids problems. Don't be a person who's ignorant, because ignorance and avoidance do not resolve the issue. You avoid it, you ignore it, it's still going to be there. If anything, when you avoid and ignore an issue, it brews. It ferments, and when it ferments, it actually contaminates all of you, and it becomes poisonous, and it spills over your surroundings, and it actually becomes contagious. Then you show up as a toxic individual. Most toxic people are not toxic just because they're randomly toxic, but they're toxic because of certain little things that they do not internally resolve. Those things actually grew, and they started becoming them, and they started actually impacting people around them. So it's always important that you address issues, you face issues head on, resolve the issues that you need to resolve, right? And then he talks about, there's law number 26. I love this law. He says your skill is worthless, but context is more valuable. I love this so much, because at first when I read it, I'm like, yo, this is uncomfortable. Are you saying I'm useless? But that's not what he's saying. He says you can have a skill, but if your skill is being utilized in the wrong place, or not even the wrong place, in a less than industry, then you're likely not to be compensated fully for it. Then he makes an example about how his marketing skill was previously paid a certain amount. Then when he moved into the biotech industry, he was highly paid, like triple than what he expected or anticipated, right? So it's always important to understand that your skill is actually not as worthful as you think. It is the context in which you use it. So where you use your skill, right? How you use your skill, and which industry you use your skill. Like, for example, lawyers, not all lawyers get paid the same. So the fact that you've got legal expertise, it doesn't mean you're going to be a multimillionaire lawyer. You need to look at different industries. A person that is in the mining industry is likely to get paid more than a person that works for a government. A person that is in the commercial banking industry is likely to be paid more than a person that is a legal advisor at an NPO. So you need to know how you like. So then he also explains how a lot of the times we're taught that in order for us to increase our salaries, it's just to change our jobs or just to ask for promotion. But another way you can actually look at it, instead of asking for promotion or just changing your job altogether, maybe move your skill to a different industry. So if right now we know right now that fintech technology is a big thing, AI is a big thing, so instead of just focusing on your legal skill or whatever skill you have, just being in a particular industry, translate your particular skill into what's in demand right now. So instead of just like right now, let's say I'm a labor specialist, of which labor specialists are probably paid less than legal advisors that are working for fintech companies or AI companies and etc. So instead of me just staying here and complaining about my money and all of that, I'd rather not just stay and complain or stay in the same industry or just seek for a promotion. Maybe move to an AI or technological company, then I'll be compensated better. So he explains that that's another way of actually improving your earning capacity, as opposed to just going up from associate, senior associate, partner, and all of that, because you may not match that big paycheck that you need. So start searching around, finding out about different industries that require services and how much worth they're willing to pay for it, or how much worth they equate to a skill, because different industries actually place a different worth to a certain skill set. So the same thing, like in a hospital, doctors are much more important than an attorney would be in a hospital. So it's important that we have a doctor operating, in as much as we need an attorney for certain maybe legal documentation, but it's much more important that we have a doctor attending to the patient. So get that context and then utilize your skill accordingly. I hope I make sense. 27, the discipline equation, death, time, and discipline. So he talks about how we hold ourselves of high regard, that we think we're so important that we forget that we're all going to die. And because we forget that we're going to die, we act as if we're going to live forever, and we focus on the most trivial things that are not important. Then he urges us to make sure that instead of just focusing on everything and letting us on anything and everything and letting it distract us, we need to start focusing on the things that matter, on the things that bring us joy. Because guess what? tomorrow is not guaranteed for either of us. Guess what? We are not going to live forever. We are going to die. So he talks about the moment we understand our immortality, then we start showing up better, and we start actually putting the effort that we need to put in the things that matter and letting go the things that don't matter. And then law number 28, love it so much. Ask who, not how. Then he talks about how many times people beat themselves up for not being able to do certain things. But again, you shouldn't be that person that wants to be able to do everything and anything. If anything, you should strive to excel and maximize in whatever you're great at. The things that you can't do, delegate and ask who can help you do them. Success of a business is not solely dependent on the brilliance of the founder or of the directors of the higher management. It's dependent on whom the CEO or the founder or the people starting up the company are hiring. So when you hire great minds, when you hire people that are good at their job, that is where your success comes from. It doesn't come from because everyone is such a brilliant individual, so by default a company is going to operate and it's going to be successful. No. Law number 31, leverage the power of progress. He says it's important that we celebrate every little win that we get. Progress is still progress. We sort of, I don't know if we're psychologically conscious of it. When you think about it, if your child comes back with a school report and say last term they had gotten 52% and this term they get 55%, you're likely not to celebrate it. But if they come with a report where they previously got 40% and now they have a 95, you are going to celebrate it, which shows that we've got a backward way of doing things, or a backward way of thinking, which actually hinders our growth, because we only almost programmed to celebrate big wins or big things. But it is also important that you celebrate the little things, because those little things, that small progress, is what motivates you to get to the bigger picture, that motivates you to show up as your best self. And law number 33, learning never ends. It doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop because you got that degree. It doesn't stop because you're good at your job. It doesn't stop. You must always make sure that you're creating an atmosphere and a space for you to learn and to improve whatever skill you have. Always know and operate from a place of you can improve it. So if you think like a person, if every time you get so good at something and you actually remind yourself that you can improve it, you technically become best at that particular thing. It never stops because you now run a multi-billion-dollar company. One of the reasons why most of the richest people in the world, or billionaires of the world, you'd realize that they never really stopped. After they were successful at that particular business, they opened other businesses. They started learning more about other industries. You would note that they are well invested in different components of different industries, or even different components within their industry. So it's important to never stop learning. No matter how great you think you are, always think about the fact that there is room for improvement. Every skill that you attain, think of it like this: I can find a way to improve this. And when you operate like that, that whole process of always wanting to improve things or do better at things, you get a byproduct of becoming the most excellent person. You get a byproduct of becoming the best at whatever you do. So I really hope that you get the book, and I hope you enjoy it, because this was one of the most beautiful books I've read. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I had such a good time. It was easy to read, quick to read, and as previously stated, 69.7% of you are watching these videos, but you are not subscribed. If this video, you found it insightful, or it changed your narrative about anything, or any other video on the channel, please kindly subscribe, share, and comment. Do not forget to be love and light. And I would definitely rate this book a 10 out of 10 because it's easy to read. If you're a person that has been struggling to finish any book, I'd highly recommend that you read this book. It's enticing, it's stimulating, and I can't believe it compressed all the self-help books. Okay, not all. Most of the self-help books I've read, it consolidated Atomic Habits, it consolidated Simplify Your Life, it consolidated The Power of Now, it consolidated Disruptive Thinkers. Like it just became a summary of most of the books that I've read, and all of those books that I've read in summary of this book actually started making sense. I was like, ooh, this is nice. This is a nice conclusion. So yeah, see you soon. See you in the next book review. Tell me, what are you currently reading?